Welcome to TruthJuice. If you've not been before, it's a community, a group, a gathering of numerous individuals just trying to find maybe a foothold in this crazy world. So tonight is an eclectic talk of half a dozen different people talking. Before the break, which will be about 9:15, we'll have Clive talking about the template, which is awakening the light body matrix. That's preparation for you. Then Sue's going to do a bit of a talk about healing, sound healing, and her own personal story. Then we'll have a break, and after the break, we've got Freeman Dave who's going to do a bit on his talk with Empower about how they're doing their pricing, and then Paul over there was talking about to us earlier about how he's deregistered his vehicle, which is an interesting concept for me and a few others in the room about who are you registering things to, and then who are you deregistering them from, and then if you do own something, can anyone take it away from you? Technically, I think we think it's no, we can't, even our children. And my son's just got his national insurance card through. Yeah, you know what I mean? He's become a commodity, a resource. So
about a year ago, I went to, actually maybe two, I went to Ian Crane's Alternative View 4, I think. Or it's the last one I remember him doing.
Yeah,
and there's always stalls at these events and things, along with the lectures and things. And there was a woman called Jennifer Carmen, who's the administrator for the template, and she had her stall. And I went along, and it all looked very interesting. And I thought I'd give it a go, and I got introduced to the world of sacred geometry and more practical applications, because we're all shown sacred geometry, but we're not really shown what you can do with it. And basically, there's a little bit of background story I'll go into. Basically, there's a couple called Jiva and Juliet Carter, and they went on a sort of mystical journey, which is explained in this book called World Bridger, yeah, which you can all have a look at later. And basically, the idea was they initially had sort of like near alien abduction from their point of view, which they got out of. And in that, they had an experience of a higher level of being that was then taken away. And then over time, they gradually rebuilt up this sacred set of symbols and words that created rituals that re-enabled this initial experience they'd had in what they call the near reptile abduction experience, and they gradually built it up. So they had this set of experiences that led them down a path to gather more information, and they built up this set of rituals, and over time they found bits were missing and added some extra stuff. So Julia and Julia Carter created this thing with some guidance from some being they give a name to that I can't remember because I haven't read the book recently. So they created this set of rituals that people can take part in and stuff like that. Unfortunately, the rituals cost money because they have to have people run them and stuff like that. But because the world's changing, and most people think there's, we're going through this crisis point and stuff like that, they've got this idea that they need to get these rituals out, yeah, because they help people and then enlighten people. So they're starting to convert these rituals to DVD, because what they found is you don't have to do the rituals with somebody being there. You can just put it on a DVD in a special way, and if somebody watches the DVD, they get the effect of the ritual. So as I've jumped about, I better go back to what the rituals are. The idea is that we've got a kind of set of energy circuits in our body, and for most people these are turned off, yeah? And the idea is that if you use sacred geometry and correct words in the correct sequence together in this ritual, it will turn back on these energy circuits that we've had off. So basically, their main aim is to get enough people having these energy circuits turned back on, because there's a kind of collective consciousness effect from more people having this energy circuits turned back on. And they basically want to push that out into the world, which is their main reason for stopping doing the rituals personally and moving them onto DVDs, because they don't think there's going to be many people travelling around the world shortly. So the only way to distribute them will be, you know, by DVD and over the internet and stuff like that. So initially, some of you, I may have lent you a copy of the original template DVD, which was just lots of the sacred geometry spinning around with sounds in certain sequences, and that was meant to give you like a taste of what the circuits actually did to your system. It varies from person to person. I didn't feel very much, but I saw other people have major effects get transformed. There was one guy that was on my initial course, and he was there because when he watched just this taster DVD, while he was doing that, all his symptoms of whatever disease he had went away. So he was there to see if he could turn it on and get permanent effects. So my main aim this evening is to introduce this concept of the template and the sacred geometry. And because I've become friends with Administrator Jennifer, she has actually given me a copy of the pre-release version of the what they call Original Innocence, which is the name of the first ceremony. So I have a copy of that, and if you come and speak to me afterwards, I will lend you a copy, so to speak. Yeah. Jennifer is sort of like gently ignoring the implications of that. Her hopes is that if you get a taste of this and you think it's good and helpful for you, that basically you'll go, oh, I want ceremonies 2 to 6, and you'll pay and go on the other ceremonies and stuff like that. So it's kind of give out, you know, to receive back, because they've spent an awful lot of money producing these things, because this is quite a professional production. I don't know whether you can see, there's a full booklet and there's 3 discs hiding in there. They're quite in debt for producing this. So they've made a huge commitment to try and get this kind of thing out in the world. Yeah. So so if you borrow this, you can actually do your own experiments and things, because basically they use kinesiology, because all the circuits have points on the body, yeah, where if you hold those points and do the arm testing, the body is weak because the circuit's off, and after you've done your ritual or watched the DVD, suppose, you know, most of us, the circuit was back, is then on strong, so you can actually test for yourself whether the circuit is working in your system, yeah. And supposedly over time, once the circuits are on, that energy will build and create changes in your life. Yeah. So there's a little bit in the booklet and stuff. Unfortunately, due to Christmas, I haven't had time to watch this. So and I was hoping I had another week to prepare. And then Andy told me I was doing it this week. So I went, okay. So I haven't had a chance to watch this, but we have a way of lending you the stuff. So right, the next thing, right, is I have the DVD up here. Unfortunately, the sound probably won't be very loud because we don't have a connection into the speakers or anything. We can try, yeah. So basically, we can try the template introduction. Just to warn you, Juliet speaks in a very specific tone of voice that seems to be part of how she does the rituals. So we'll just start playing the introduction and see what happens.
From the smallest particle to the spiraling galaxies, the subatomic to the multi-universal, a matrix of electromagnetic circuitry connects and energizes manifest creation in one unified body of harmonic resonance. Our blood contains the same divine essence and molecular alchemy as the rivers that run to the sea. Our bones made of the same elemental components as the ancient stone monoliths that silently witness the passing of ages. We are continually exchanging a data flow of source intelligence with the body of Earth and every form of life within her embrace. Every nuance of celestial diffusion within our solar system influences our individual and collective field of consciousness. As circuits of electromagnetic exchange bind us together as one living ocean of psychosensory, co-creative space-time coordinates within the unified field. We are the amalgamation of various visible and invisible energy systems that together generates the human hologram. The primary system that supplies this unit with the energetic nature of creative intelligence that births the field is the circuitry system. At this time, this system is to a significant degree non-functioning. The fact that out of 3 billion base pair chemicals in the human gene code, only 60 million are active, and that we use only 1/5 of our brain capacity, are manifest signs that point to human genetic modification. To truly estimate the present condition of this planet and its race, whether to evaluate the integrity of its governing systems, its proclivity to conflict, disease, and ultimately its mortal program, it is essential to factor into our calculations the genetic manipulation of the human DNA. For it is this, together with our deviant orbit of the Sun and the presence of a massive body of magnetic disturbance within Earth's biospheric field, that is creating a fear-based mutant paradigm. Like all else in the universe of electromagnetic information systems, the soul covenant embedded in the human matrix is built upon the vibratory infrastructure of energy pathways that follow geometric patterns. Form is the shape of consciousness. Conscious communion with sacred geometry is an intrinsic component in the reactivation of the divine immortal blueprint and the realization of a true space-time continuum. Sacred geometry is a configurative language of the elemental components of the divine creative force that gives birth to all life. It offers a direct conduit to prime consciousness, to source, bypassing the dogmatic perimeters of the intellect to transmit knowledge that exists beyond the reach of religion, philosophy, belief, or disbelief. The primary infrastructure of all existence is light. All is light. All is geometry. As we commune with sacred geometric forms, we interact with their fields of informational influence. Their energetic radiance emits a frequency that communes with the vibratory infrastructure of our original blueprint in search of a like frequency with which to resonate. Through this resonant feedback, the structural integrity of the original human template present in the soul covenant is reinforced. Through the disconnection of circuitry and the modification of human DNA, Humanity's connection to the heart of the cosmos is compromised. Humanity is orphaned, disoriented, lost in a deviant temporal zone, searching blindly for a point of spiritual reference in order to know itself and evolve, adopting preordained dogmatic belief systems that profess to define the origins of their existence. In the midst of the many and differing spins on our history and our true identity as humans, we can trust the living truth of nature and the nameless, energetic intelligence that defines the benevolent heart of creation. There is one truth, your truth, buried in your dormant DNA. A confluence of cosmic influences rendered the corner of the galaxy a super fertile solar system capable of conceiving innumerable exquisite life forms, each one a fractal aspect of a holonomic field of symbiotic evolution. Each point of light within the field coded to function as a sensory organ for the development of the integral field. Were we in electromagnetic resonance with this field, we would have by now evolved into a highly advanced race on a blossoming planet, enjoying a path of evolution measured by our ability to translate light and to give and receive love in all that we do, to function as conduits of source consciousness. The present concept of progress is measured in terms of lethal technology. There is a conspicuous escalation of depravity in the systems that govern our lives. The material field is showing signs of acute decay. The corruption is evident in the degeneration of ecological, social, political, and economic structures. The trend is towards terminal decline. These are manifest symptoms of a far deeper malignancy. Systemic failure is the core problem. The corruption is in the matrix. To re-establish the integrity of the true matrix is to reactivate the divine, immortal human blueprint, built upon the laws of resonant harmonics, creating synergy with the vibratory infrastructure of our dormant DNA. The template is a transcendent model that offers the uninterpreted, uncensored, energetic truth of creation, delivered by the simple reconnection of electromagnetic energy. That truth may open to you, within you. This upgrade of energy revitalizes the endocrine system and renders us able to receive, translate, and utilize the geometries of light, that we may ready ourselves for the luminous data density offered by the 2012 portal of opportunity, that we may collectively stabilize a new model of existence, a paradigm resonant with the integrity of light.
As you can see, some of the they've got some very nice complicated sacred geometry pieces there. Some of the most complicated sacred geometry I've seen. Juliet was going through in a very formal way her understanding of how the energies all connect and how it's a bigger implication for how what's happened on the history of the planet and stuff like that, and some of that's in the book. If you want to know more, come and speak to me. I will lend you the stuff. You can have an experience, see whether it works for you. And if you then want to follow up, there are leaflets, because Jennifer is running a course in Birmingham at some point. I believe the dates may be in the leaflets. And if not, you can contact Jennifer and she'll tell you when it is. And I've got 2 of the books, so if you want to have a quick look at those in the break, you're welcome to have a quick look at those. Are there any questions for this mere mortal talking about this and trying to give you a gift?
Do you think it's a kind of thing you put on like on a daily basis or on a weekly basis? Like a routine?
What I saw, there were different options. The template has some other material where you could do rituals. The aim was, there's the basic rituals that once they're done, your circuits are turned on, and that will build over time. But there was like the DVD of all the just sacred geometry spinning and some other rituals that you could do, and they would enhance the effect. So it was sort of like an option. I haven't really done much with it, I only occasionally watch it, but there was one woman on a course and she'd been doing the ritual practically every day, and supposedly, according to the people that knew her from before, she was very transformed and much more empowered. You get options, yeah? So you can either watch the DVD and see what it does and what you feel. We can lend you a copy of the original DVD, which is just all the sacred geometry spinning, so you can get a feel for that, and see what happens. Anybody else?
I think you've got to point out that these things need to be you need to be dedicated to these things, because it's the same with, I practice hypnosis, and if you're using hypnosis on a regular basis, then you'll get benefits off it. If you leave this and start thinking, oh, I'll just put it on once a week, you probably won't get as much benefit from it.
Yeah, you're correct, but I mean the template people partly have a concept of just permanently turning people's circuits on, because there's something about the collective effect of the numbers of people that have that done. So even if they're not doing the rituals on a very regular basis, there's something about the more people that have their circuits turned on, we connect to each other energetically in auras or whatever, and they've got this huge aim to get vast numbers of people. At some point they're planning to put these things on YouTube just to try and get sheer numbers. Obviously the DVD quality will be better than YouTube, and as I said, they have a debt issue. Yeah, they've spent thousands to tens of thousands to produce this DVD. So. And this is the first of 6. Yeah, there are 6 ceremonies. The first one's sort of like building your basic energy connections, like earth, air, fire, your elements and stuff like that. I think 4 or 5 they do something to cancel the effect of the moon. If you're aware of David Icke's negative statements about the moon being like a spaceship and transmitter, these people were talking about that before him, and in the book they say they found it by accident because somebody was wearing a t-shirt of a moon and the circuit didn't turn on, and they started experimenting to try and find out why the circuit didn't turn on, and it wasn't until they took off the t-shirt. Yeah.
So even just a symbol?
Even just, according to them, even just a symbol, yeah. But supposedly, once you'd gone through the next ceremony that they found after that, you cancelled the effect. Or in here, circuits, according to them. I don't truly know. I believe in trying to spread some of the things that I found. So we're putting this out into the community, and you can have a go and see what you think.
Thanks very much, Clive.
My name's Sue, and I was introduced by Elena and by Lynn. So I've known Lynn for some years now, and just to thank Andy for inviting me to talk today. It's maybe going to take about 25 minutes, 30 minutes. And it's basically my story of overcoming some really serious illness that you would never guess I've had. But I guess there are lots of people in my situation. So this is just to summarise what my life is around right now. I had a chat with Lynn, who suggested how to do this presentation. And she thought, just kind of say, this is my life now. So I'm a musician. And when I was 8, I asked my parents for a violin, and I learnt to play in orchestras and classical concertos and playing string quartets. And then you know what it's like if you're watching the telly or listening to the radio, and then all of a sudden you hear someone sing or someone playing a guitar, and just at that moment it does something for you, and you say, I would give my life to be able to do that. So I've had this experience maybe 3 or 4 times, and the first time was about 15, 20 years ago, with a river dance and a guy that was playing the uilleann pipes, those really gorgeous Irish pipes. And I just became completely obsessed with Irish music. So that picture top right is an Irish session. And then a bit later, I discovered a guy called Stefan Grappelli, who was this amazing violinist that never had to practice. And I have to tell you, I do. I had to practice really hard to get good at things. He never used to practice. He just used to surround himself with guys that were amazing jazz players. There was a guy called Django Reinhardt that burned his hand in a caravan fire, who was a gypsy. And Stefan Grappelli and Django Reinhardt became this really famous duet, and they became a kind of national symbol in France during the Second World War. And so that picture, top left, is a kind of caricature of Grappelli and Django Reinhardt. And then I had to learn how to do that. And then more recently, a friend introduced me. The friend was Jewish, and she introduced me to this music called klezmer. And klezmer is Eastern European Jewish wedding music. So the closest, if no one's ever heard this, the closest thing I can describe is Fiddler on the Roof. And I heard this clarinetist play klezmer, and my mouth just fell open, and I just had to learn how to do it. So that's the bottom left picture is of me with a klezmer band based in Manchester, and occasionally I play for klezmer weddings. And then middle picture is me teaching klezmer, because there are very few people that know how to play it. And that's me teaching some students. And as I'm trying to explain what my life is around now, I'm obsessed with my cat, so I have to show you her. Her name is Arthur. And then the other side of my life that I decided to represent with the Reiki hands is a very important side of my life, which is about healing and spirituality and having an open heart and the kind of things that we will talk about at TruthJuice, without which my life would be very different. And I discovered several years ago that actually I could do Reiki on myself, and I'm really convinced that it saved my sanity and probably my life. So, next slide please. So, you're wondering why I'm showing me. It was about 11 years ago, and this was a peak experience holiday organised by a company called Bike Events. And I was really lucky to be able to go on this holiday. We had a van take all our tents and all our stuff around, and all we had to do was cycle over the Alps between Prague and Venice. And it was about 75 miles a day, and I got overtired. And one day I forgot to put my helmet on, and I came off my bike. And that's what I looked like. And yeah, it was pretty horrific. So I came off my bike somewhere down in the Alps, and next one. That's it. So basically what I hadn't realised, this is 11 years ago, what I hadn't realised is that I'd actually wedged my atlas, which is the top cervical bone in my neck. Conventional people didn't find it, a chiropractor did. I've damaged my neck quite badly, and basically over the next 3 months after my accident, the pain got worse and worse and worse, and it actually felt like every second of the day I was re-experiencing my road traffic accident, and I was in so much pain I had no quality of life at all. And I have to admit, I'm sure there are others in the audience who've been in this place where they look okay, but actually they're not. And people around you, because you look like this, they can't believe that you're in really horrific pain. And you look so miserable, and you're so boring to be with, because all you can talk about is being ill and being in pain and suffering. So in the end, you drive everyone away, and all of us would have met someone like that, and I was one of those people. And I'm almost ashamed to say it, but there shouldn't be any shame in it at all when people are that ill. That's what happens, and that's a normal reaction to things that are invisible. So basically, in the end, I couldn't ask for help, because when I did, I was just so ashamed and so embarrassed because I looked okay. And people got fed up, friends and family, and even medical people just drifted away. And I ended up spending eventually 3 years completely on my own with no social contact, and I lost all my self-confidence. I wasn't like this at all. I couldn't look people in the eye, and no one would have guessed that I used to be a professional woman. And in fact, you know, I think we all realise that it takes it happening to you to realise that no one is immune to horrific things happening in their life. There's no one is definitely going to get away with it. And prior to all this happening, I was actually a GP, and I was looking after people, and I never ever thought in a million years anything like that would happen to me. And obviously, no one's immune, so, okay. Oh, I thought I'd just give you one highlight. I did have a highlight in those 3 years. There was a whole fire crew of Dishy firemen who came to my flat when I nearly set it alight for the 3rd time. And they came and fitted me an alarm, a smoke alarm, and that was nice, but the rest of it wasn't. So, okay, on a hunch, I was obviously going to see my GP, and they were obviously prescribing stronger and stronger drugs, and none of them were working. And I was getting so ill from side effects from painkillers that weren't even working. So, on a hunch, I thought, okay, I couldn't play my violin, I'd hurt my neck too badly. So on a hunch, I thought, I need drums. There's something about drum beats I need. So in fact, I managed to find a drum camp, and I managed to drive there, and God knows how. And when I was at that drum camp, from the moment people started playing the drums, my pain level went down and down and down and down, until it sat just about where I could cope with it. And I'd never ever had that experience with any drug I'd taken, with anything else. And because of the job I used to do, I was so gobsmacked that I'd never been taught that there are other things apart from drugs that are way more powerful. But as you can imagine, the amount of confidence I'd lost, there was no way I could walk into a medical person's surgery or someone who was interested in pain and say, hey, I've made this amazing discovery that may work for other people. So that's a little frustrating. Okay, that's it. That's all I don't want to make this story too horrendous, but I will tell you the bits about it that I think maybe are most important. There are other aspects to this. But as I was quite unlucky, about 18 months after the accident, I then developed weird hearing in my left ear that got worse and worse, and then the sound of an aeroplane engine that was really deep, as if I was standing right next to it. And music that I've loved all my life sounded like a horror track, and no one really took it seriously until an old ear, nose and throat consultant I'd worked for, which makes me really lucky, referred me to London, and they did some really special tests and discovered that I'd had a stroke. So on top of developing this really damaged neck, I then had a stroke, and I ended up so isolated because I'd got this constant sound of an aeroplane engine. And if I give you an idea of what it's like to have, if people get tinnitus, they also have another thing that tends to happen at the same time, and it's called hyperacusis, which means overhearing, hyperacusis. And if I just give you an idea of what that's like, if everyone's quiet for 2 seconds, so that level of noise would have been way too loud for me to tolerate. Even silence, even hearing my own voice. So as you can imagine, that is pretty frightening, you know, to be on your own already because you're in pain, and then to develop a stroke. And so here we go. So I think this story has to take a turn for the better, because otherwise everyone's going to get depressed, including me, trying to remember this stuff. So I was really fortunate because I found out about an organisation called the British Performing Arts Medical Trust. And what that is anyone who's a performer, an artist, a musician, if you develop an illness, they actually have special doctors that will see you and try to help you. So I went along to this appointment and I happened to meet a guy that had set up the first residential pain programme in the UK. Now my GP hadn't heard of any of this. None of the local pain specialists knew about it or seemed to want to suggest it. So 2 years after the accident, with no quality of life, I ended up really lucky attending this 4-week programme. And the programme was called Input, and Input stands for Inpatient Pain Management Unit, I think. Inpatient Pain Management Unit, yes. And that was at Guy's and St Thomas's Hospital in London. And I stayed there for 4 weeks. And what really surprised me was that the staff there had discovered that the conventional model of medicine that all of us know about, and there's quite a lot of negative talk about it in TruthJuice, and understandably so, they discover that if people have chronic pain, it doesn't work for them. That's no surprise, is it really? And what they did, amazingly so, it's an NHS programme, so they interviewed yoga teachers, alternative practitioners, people that knew about other ways of dealing with chronic illness. And they actually taught us how to do the things that alternative practitioners had learned to do. And that worked so much better. They also taught us not to take drugs for pain, because if you're in pain for a long time, what it means is you take a drug, the drug already stops you from being able to think straight. If you can't think straight, you can't do skilled things to help yourself. You can't distract yourself from pain. You also get side effects that make you iller, and there's this kind of catch-22 situation. So instead of that, for pain, we learned how to start off by exercising just a little bit, because most of us didn't move all day long. I got really fat, not attractive at all. And so basically they had to, a lot of us would just be in tears being shown how to do these exercises, saying, please don't make me, it'll hurt too much. So they did it in a very sensitive way, and they taught us how to do yoga stretches that are really quite skilled. And they taught us that far better than drugs is to find something in your life that you really love. And to be honest, I don't think this should apply to people with chronic illness just. I think it should be all of us. The thing that gives you quality life is doing the thing that you really love to do. And I think it's the next slide. And this is a really skilled questionnaire. This is what they were asking us. I don't know any other clinic that would ask people these kind of questions. Usually the medical model says, what's wrong? How do we find an answer for it? But what if there's no cure? So at last they'd actually recognised with people with chronic pain, there usually isn't a cure. We're stuck with it. So this is far more skilled. So they ask questions like, what works to improve your quality of life? What works to distract you from when you're in pain or you're not very well? So what works to make you happy? What works so that you can socialise even on your bad days? And what work could you do even on your bad days? This is a really boring answer. This was my answer. And I couldn't play music and I couldn't hear it. But that was my answer. And to be quite honest, this little happy man up at the top, he's got his hand against something called a toolbox. And a toolbox is something a lot of people with chronic illness who learn about how to manage their chronic illnesses get introduced to this concept of a toolbox. A toolbox is a set of skills that you discover work for you. So in other words, this talk is not saying if you've got pain you should do what I did. Completely not. It's saying what works for you. If you find something works for you in your life, if you're going through a bad place, you do more of it. If you find something makes things worse, you avoid it. If that includes people you love, you avoid them. Whatever. Thank you, Lynn. She knows all about this. So basically it means you do what works and you avoid what doesn't work for you, and you've got to do that in order to manage a bad situation, and it makes it so much better. Okay, that's it. Okay. Oh, there we go. Right, this is from my background. This is my training. This guy is a surgeon. Okay. So the NHS work in a conventional way. They respect something called the conventional model, and from my experience, the conventional model views people who are patients as being unskilled, disempowered, inferior, and I'm ashamed to say I recognise that. But in fact, really, in the conventional model, we're treated as relatively helpless. And what that means is that those people who manage to find other ways around different illnesses, the kind of things, the stories that we pass on to each other in TruthJuice, none of that will filter through to the medical people, because they haven't got time to listen, they're not interested. And yet you've got so many people in society that are brilliant role models for coping with different things that unfortunately the medical people ought to know about, because they're the people who can disseminate information, but that's not seeming to happen. So it relies on groups like us to talk to each other about our experiences and pass things on. The other thing is about the conventional model of medicine is that short-term things, they're called acute. So if you've got an acute illness, it doesn't last very long, but it can be really bad. So if you've got acute pain, something like a painkiller can be brilliant. It can help sort that out and give you a lot of relief. But chronic illnesses, they're totally different. You can't keep on treating a chronic illness as an acute one for a week and then another acute one for a week for the rest of someone's life. Because what you're doing, you're poisoning people. Poisoning someone for a week to give them relief is okay, but not for a whole lifetime. And a lot of people aren't aware of that. But I suppose I've become aware of it. Okay. Right. So, as you can imagine, I was really missing my music. I've been doing it since I was a kid, and it's my way, it's my spiritual thing. It's the thing that gives me a kind of sense of connection that other people get from going to church or, you know, meditating. So it's that important to me, and I was missing it so much. So in fact, at Import, what they said, you've got to do your music if that's what is going to give you quality of life. And in London, the ENT, ear, nose and throat people said, you've had a stroke, you're frightened of music, but you've got to expose yourself to music in order for your brain to relearn how music works. So because I played a bit of guitar, and you can see I put on a bit of weight there, can't you? Wasn't very well at all. And so what in the little picture on the right, that shows me at a rainbow camp, I think it was Rainbow 2000 in Gloucestershire somewhere. And what it allowed me to do was to be with other people. I think it was a healing and detox camp. It allowed me to be with other people whilst I was trying to work out how music worked again. So when I put my fingers on a chord, I couldn't hear it, but my brain knew what I was supposed to be hearing. So that way, as long as I was around other people, I could teach myself what music was all about again. Right, so the other thing about needing to be around people with music was I thought, okay, I have several friends now who have disabilities and really serious ones. They're not patients, they're friends, they're on the level with me. And I saw other people like me who desperately wanted to do music. And these two characters, Chris and Lisa, that's me in the background. Chris and Lisa have given permission for me to show their photos. And we were given funding by David Blunkett's Community Champions Fund. And that was to cover the hire of the room and for someone else to set the equipment up because I was in too much pain to do that. And we'll see a picture of him later on playing guitar. Okay. How do I get to the internet site? I've got a quick snippet of Soundbeam just to show you how we did this music.
Another way of playing the beam is to have a continuous run of notes to encourage music making in an improvisational style, such as here at the Cerebral Palsy Association College in Portugal, where Soundbeam is a key feature in this rock band. This is Christopher from Loxheath near Southampton. He normally has a very short attention span and can be a challenging youngster, but here he reveals total concentration, an impressive sense of phrasing and real improvisational skill, an expressive and musical intelligence which was just waiting to be unlocked.
So that's the instrument. So you've got some idea of what I was doing. I've got this one friend, Lisa, used to be a teacher, and she was incredibly depressed. She stopped smiling. I've not seen her smile for about 8 months. We were all her friends were really worried about her. She couldn't sit upright in a chair without slumping over and couldn't feed herself anymore. And then this picture was taken within minutes of her playing Soundbeam for the first time. And the great thing about Soundbeam is it's a theremin of, you know, the old sci-fi films. They used to have the ooh, spooky sounds. It's a Star Trek sound, and it's kind of like looks like a microphone. It's got this invisible beam that comes. I think it's ultrasound, and the beam is divided into 64 invisible bits, so it can tell how close your hand, or even someone who's almost completely paralysed, can play it with their eyelids. You know, they've got control over it. But you have to choose what instrument and what style and what scale of music it is. So Lisa was desperate to play the clarinet, and she was desperate to play jazz. So we created a jazz setting for her, and we accompanied it. And then next one. And then this is Chris. He I guess is in his late 60s, and only recently has become independent. He has cerebral palsy, and he's fixed almost lying down. I don't know whether you can tell. He's almost lying down in his wheelchair. And Chris was incredibly frustrated because he was desperate to play music, and every conventional instrument that he tried, he couldn't play it, and he was really upset. And then when he discovered Soundbeam, he was over the moon. He wanted to play a church organ. So Paul and myself created this setting for him, which had really boomy chords in this church organ sound that he was in control of. And then we created these really cathedral-like extra boomy chords. So every concert that we did, he played his church organ setting. And he wrote this article in the Soundbeam magazine, and part of it, he was saying, when I play Soundbeam, I forget for a few blissful minutes the physical disability which has taken up far too much space in my life. Playing Soundbeam was pure magic. Okay, this is, if you imagine, you're 50 to 100 kids of junior school age, all with cerebral palsy, and it's all quite bad. And you're at the National Conductive Education Centre, which is that building in the Cannon Hill Park, if any of you know it. And these kids had only ever concentrated for half an hour. It's about my concentration span usually. And basically in this concert, they saw two people in wheelchairs looking like themselves, who were part of a music group where they played an important part instead of being spoken down to, because we were all friends. And they concentrated for an hour. And after that, two of the kids burst into tears. And I was saying to Lynn earlier on, that actually could be construed negatively, not positively. But actually, they were really sad that we were going. So it was a really important experience for these young kids to see role models of people in wheelchairs with disabilities able to play music as an equal part of a music group. Alright, so this is just kind of reminds me, this is, you know, maybe not what I look like when I'm playing music. Lynn has seen me play my violin at K2 and Moseley, it's a jazz venue, and she'll know I always look as miserable as sin when I'm playing my violin. And unfortunately, that isn't how I feel. I feel amazing. I'm just in an amazing place. The pain just, the moment I start playing, I'm not in pain. And the look of concentration on my face makes me look miserable, and I'm incredibly happy when I'm doing it. So this is kind of show you actually what's going on inside. And the thing I've discovered, having worked with a lot of people playing music who otherwise wouldn't be able to, the thing I've discovered is that if you are someone in a terrible place and you speak what is going on, you speak your grief and frustration and your sadness and your anger, it's a really great way of getting rid of everyone in the room. You lose your friends, you lose your family, you lose everyone's support. But the amazing thing about music is you play your grief, your anger, your frustration, your sadness, and everyone in the room is better for it. It doesn't matter how bad your emotions are, you put it through music, and it's like this converter machine, and it converts everything that's bad you put into it, and it comes out as magic. And that's the thing I love about music. Okay, and I suppose the other thing to say is that this presentation isn't about a medical career, and it's not about being a professional musician. It's about the fact that there are people around, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, whose life hasn't been about climbing career ladders and trying to get financial gain and increase the amount of money in our banks. It really is just about survival and enjoying the day. Oh, that's me, but you can see me here already. And so this is just to say it took 11 years to get back to someone who could smile again. And I've been so incredibly lucky with the help that I've been given by a few people, with some amazing friends. And I think if it wasn't for amazing people, anyone like me would still be down there and not here at all. Okay, nearly there. Okay, I think this is really important. This is a really bad picture of one of my favourite places. And it's called Minack Theatre. You recognise it, isn't it beautiful? Minack Theatre is kind of on the tip of Cornwall with the most beautiful views out to sea. And people who live in Cornwall actually get to go to theatre performances and operas and whatnot with that kind of view. It's a little bit like the outdoor theatre at the Mac, but with that view instead. You imagine how lucky they are. And I really think, you know, I really want to have a little bit more ambition for the future. But actually, I think sometimes the most important thing is not to be thinking of what you're going to be doing tomorrow and the next day in order to succeed. It's actually enjoying what we've got right here and right now. Okay, this is the last slide, and it's just kind of I just decided to put together what I'd like to be doing in the future. The little box with the 2 seats on the left, that kind of depicts what it's like for me when I'm practicing music, because otherwise I can be in a really bad place with pain. But when I'm playing my violin, even on my own in my office upstairs and learning music, I go into this place a little bit like meditation, and it's a really lovely, quiet, peaceful, pain-free place. The middle slide is, I went swimming around coral reefs a few years ago, and I hadn't realised how beautiful and amazing an experience it was. And I really want to be well enough one day to go and do that again. picture on the right is a building in a place called Findhorn. Findhorn is a community in Scotland of people whose kind of principles are very much like TruthJuice. They consider things like sustainable living, taking care of one another, alternative ways of being well and keeping well, looking after the planet we live on. And I would just love to go there for a week or so. The little candle's just about learning more healing ways of healing, and maybe helping other people in a similar situation to myself who aren't quite so far on their journey. The bottom pictures on the right are really just to say I can't stop my music, because if I do, then I lose everything positive that I've gained from the last few years. And then, yes, and I guess really I would love to do some more cycling, because I haven't been able to walk that far. And I've suddenly discovered that having a really decent cycle means that I can get around and really enjoy scenery and whatnot. Thank you so much for listening and being patient, because it's always a little bit hard telling an emotive story. I never thought I'd be able to stand up and talk to people about what I've been through. I didn't honestly think I'd be alive now. So I'm just amazed and really thankful that I can actually do this and share a little bit of what I've been through with you.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I was going to say, is there any questions?
So on the healing side, so it's the music, is that the healing? Is that?
You know, I think it's not just music, that's the thing that in my toolbox that works the most powerfully for me.
And so you were just tapping into that and trying to build on that to gauge, you know, how did you gauge then the healing in yourself?
All I know is if you are very ill and you do something that whilst you're doing it you don't feel ill, your body is getting relief. You're getting relief from it. It's giving your body a chance to heal itself. And I must admit, I've become a much bigger believer in, you know, our bodies have the ability to do what our bodies can do if we just get out of the way. So I think that's what I do, my way of getting out of the way and letting things heal themselves.
I was just going to say, do you enjoy listening to music? And is that as healing to you? As obviously you used to love listening to different types, different cultural music. So does listening to music now have any healing effects for you, or is it just the playing?
More playing. So if, say, I go to a concert and I listen to other people, I can really love the music and I can find the pain coming back. So it's about being totally immersed in something.
It's an interesting concept, because I think you spend an average of 12 minutes in McDonald's and 6 minutes with the GP. That's the time differential. So they're rushed, you know, they're rushed to give a quick diagnosis. Swiftline Beecham, I think, are richer than every country but 10 in the world. So you've got major medicinal companies funding doctors who've got 5 minutes of associated time to diagnose and get you out of there and get Mrs. McGinn's in because she's in every day. So I think, as I said, if you find your own distraction rather than an additional distraction, it's naturally going to be ethno-botanically better for you.
But I suppose the one thing I'm surprised no one said is how I feel about having been a doctor. Because you come along to TruthJuice and you know, and actually when I was a doctor I realised these things, but not in as much depth as I do now.
Yeah, but all the best doctors used to advertise Lucky Strike. All the best dentists advertise best use of fluoride. One dentist told a woman, Paul from Leicester's wife, the other day, don't wash toothpaste off your children's teeth overnight. Leave it on overnight so we can really get to work. He's not giving that from a negative thing, he's giving it from...
There was a programme on Radio 4 recently, and it's where they're advocating that parents have their children have this fluoride coating that permanently stays on their teeth. Well, you go along and it's like a varnish that they paint full of fluoride. And it was on Radio 4 about 2 weeks ago.
I was listening to a story earlier, and it's about deregistering vehicles or interacting with the police on a Freeman level. And as I said, some of this can get quite negative because it's challenging values and paradigms that have been built up all your life, which is that they're always right, and really you should just do as you're told. And when you do start to question your inalienable rights, it's not treated with any form of mutual respect. So I'm going to introduce Paul, who's going to talk and tell his story. As I said, this is Paul, everybody.
What I was going to say about, I wasn't expecting to do this tonight, but recently I was fined for speeding just in Birmingham. I was taken to court because I was caught by a camera travelling at 40 miles an hour in what was known as a 30 mile an hour speed limit. But on closer inspection I found that this area was actually a 40 mile an hour speed limit prior to it being made 30 mile an hour, and that the signposting there hadn't been updated to reflect that. So basically I was caught out. And it was by one of these, what they call Gatso machines.
What's that?
It's a speed camera. Those horrible yellow boxes that you throw bricks at when you drive past. Sorry, that you drive past. But I didn't want to pay the fine because I thought it was unfair. I went to court last July. Magistrates' court or maritime courts, whatever you want to call them. But at the time, I wasn't aware of all this business about the Freeman movement and everything else. So I went along like a good boy, stood in the dock like I was told. He asked me what my religion was, and I actually told him Manchester United. He didn't find that funny and gave me a Bible to hold. Now, I am an atheist, but I held it anyway and gave him all the rubbish. And I told him exactly what had happened, showed them photographs to prove that they hadn't signposted the area properly. Now, for any of you who drive around Birmingham at all, this area is, I think it's called Lawley Middleway, and it's near to the Birmingham City football ground. There's a series of dual carriageways that are 40 miles an hour, and right sandwiched in the middle of them is one that is deemed 30. But the signposts there should, at the beginning of that section, have two signposts reading 30 mile an hour zone, and at the end of it, end of 30 mile an hour zone. They're not there, they're absent. The only signposts down that road are two 30 mile an hour signs about the size of a 50p piece, and they're both 100 feet in front of the speed cameras, both on the left-hand side of the road. Now, I drive an MGF, which, if you're not familiar with, is about that high. And when you're sat in that, driving along on a dual carriageway, if a van is on the inside of you, you can't see what's on the left. And that's what happened. I was overtaking a van. And that's why the camera caught me. I was doing 40, which is what I thought the speed limit was. But apparently not. So I reflected back to the courts all this information and showed them the photographs. I even had video of the area. I'd even put a video camera on my dashboard of my car showing a driver's view. They weren't interested, didn't want to know. They fined me £140, £60 of it was for costs, £65 of it was the fine, and £15 victim support. Yeah, that's what I thought. I said to the magistrate, who was the victim? Said there was no one there. And he wouldn't listen. And he carried on as if I wasn't there. And he said, how do you wish to pay? And I said, never. And he looked at me as if I'd got two heads and said, but you have to pay. No, I don't. I said, I've shown you all the evidence to prove that I'm not guilty. And he said, okay, you can pay £5 a week. No, I can't. And I left the court before they dismissed the court. I was in a temper and I thought, I'll go before I swear at him, and left. I went down to meet some friends down Wiltshire for a camping weekend, straight after that, literally out of the court and down south. A couple of them were from the Freeman movement and some from TPUC and other organisations, and they pointed out to me about the laws. And one of them gave me a copy of the book by, I don't know if you're familiar with it, Veronica Chapman. And the book was called Freedom is More Than a 7-Letter Word, which is excellent reading. If you haven't read it, I would guarantee that you'll get something out of it if you go and buy it. It's a very, very informing book. It tells you about the law, the common law, how to deal with courts and magistrates' courts, but it also has in there something that opened my eyes a little bit to a thing about car registration. Now, how many of you in here own your own cars? Oh, there's a couple of them. Well, actually, those of you who think you own your cars, you don't. They're actually owned by Swansea, or the DVLA, the dirty, vicious, no, sorry. But they're owned by the DVLA. If you look at the V5 document that comes with your car, with the registration number, it clearly says on the front, this is not proof of ownership. You are the registered keeper. Now that was drawn to my attention, so I did the honourable thing, and I wrote to the DVLA with a notice of understanding and intent of claim of right. Don't worry if that's a bit of a mouthful. There's templates of it on the internet, which I'll point out to you if you want to speak to me afterwards. I sent it to the DVLA, telling them that I was claiming back the rights to my own automobile, and that I no longer wanted the registration on their database, but I wanted the registration now to be known as Liberty. I had the registration plates made exactly the same as they are on all cars, yellow at the back, white at the front, a bit different to underpants, but that's how I had them made. I put them on the car and I started to drive around. I gave the DVLA 2 weeks to reply. They didn't acknowledge the letter or anything, and it was sent recorded delivery. I then followed it up with a notice of non-response and lawful estoppel by acquiescence. Again, it's a bit of a mouthful, but don't worry. This basically means that they have entered into a contract with me, meaning that the car belongs to me and not to them. It's not liable to tax, insurance or MOT, because it's my own private mode of transport, owned by me. So they have no jurisdiction over the car whatsoever. They don't like that. So the Directorate of Corporate Affairs wrote back to me, telling me that if I'm using it on the road, I have to have a licence, tax, all the rest of it. And so this went on, letters back to them, they sent letters back to me. Now, in the contract that I went into with them, there was a fee schedule. £500 an hour if I'm stopped by the police unlawfully. £5,000 if they handcuff me or jail me or take me away to the police station. £20,000 if they remove my vehicle. A couple of weeks back, in the 29th of October it was, I was driving to go and pick my girlfriend up to go out on a Saturday night. Police car stopped me, asking about the registration, Liberty. He said, is it supposed to be L18ERTY? I said, no, it's Liberty. So can't you read? And he didn't like it. And well, you know that if you're driving this on the road, that you have to have proper registration plates. No, I don't. So this car's not registered to Swansea. And then he started asking about insurance and everything. The car's not insured. It doesn't need to be. Well, if you're driving on the road under this law, that's a statute. I don't consent to statutory law. Then he read me my rights. You have the right to remain silent, blah, 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 blah. Do you understand? Your comments have been noted, officer. I am not standing under you, and I am not consenting to anything that you tell me. He got really riled, went back to his car, to his mate, came back to me. All this is recorded on the mobile phone. Then he said to me, would you like to get out of the car, sir, and come and sit in the police car? No, I'm quite comfortable here, thank you, officer. You're quite welcome to come and join me in my car, then. The door's open. So he went round and he got in, he sat next to me. Again, he didn't like this because he hadn't got me out of my car and inconvenienced me into his. The main thing I can point out to you, if ever you're stopped by the police like this, always remain courteous. Don't get angry with them because that's what they want. They'll try and goad you into a fight, and the minute you show any sort of anger towards them, woof. they'll arrest you for aggressive behaviour or whatever that they want to try and put on you. So you've always got to keep smiling and be polite. Call them sir, officer, or anything like that. The guy sat in the car and he was going through everything with me. That you've got to have this, this and this. I said no, and I explained to him exactly how it all worked. I explained to him as well about the, I don't know if you're familiar with the other concept of the fiction. Yeah, the straw man. And I explained all this to him. And he started getting interested. But then he told me...
I checked my birth certificate today. There's absolutely nothing on my birth certificate saying that I'm ownership of any ranch. It doesn't say anything with the source.
It's a certificate. It's basically a registration.
Does it say that I'm owned by the state?
For the registration. There's a number on it.
Yeah.
Even though I exist, it's
But
not telling them that they own me.
Your national insurance number also doesn't say you're owned by the state, but it's a number which basically ties in with all of that.
Kerry, it's legalese. They use the word register in its legal terms, and that is where the statement is that says they own you. Yeah. So you have to step into legalese and the Black's Law Dictionary, which looks like English but isn't, to find the meaning of that sentence.
Because when you do it, it's registered with the registrar, isn't it? Births, deaths and marriages, the registrar. But anyway, getting back to the point, this police officer started to get interested until he asked me my name, and I told him that he could call me Paul. And then he asked me my surname, and I said, I don't have a surname. You must have a surname. I said, no, I haven't. I said, I've got a family name. And he said, what's your family name? So I told him. What's your date of birth? I said, do you accept hearsay? And he looked at me, is this guy off his head or something? And of course I hadn't been out, so I hadn't had a drink, so he couldn't blame it on alcohol. And I said, I don't know what my birth date is. So I was only like a couple of hours old. I said, do you remember being born? And again, he didn't like it, back to the car and to his mate, back to me. So he sat back in the car and he said, what do you do for a living? This is what I love when I meet the coppers or anybody in authority. I work as a hypnotist. The minute I turned round to him and said, I'm a hypnotist, he went white. And he said, oh, I've been hypnotised to stop smoking. And I said, did it work? He said, yes. And I said to him, do you realise how easy it is to re-hypnotise somebody after they've been hypnotised once? He got out of the car quicker than Mario Andretti in a fire car. He was back to his car, he wouldn't come and speak to me. They phoned for the truck to take my car away. And the truck turned up, the tow truck. The guy decided then that he was going to attach the things to my car to put it on the trailer. I wouldn't give them the keys to the car. And the police officer, or policy officer, he tried to say to me that I was obstructing a police officer. I said, how can I be obstructing you when I'm sat in my car and you're out there? I'm obstructing you from what? Stealing my car? And he didn't like it. They asked again for the keys, and I gave them a spare key that I've got in my wallet, which doesn't have the immobiliser on. So they took the car away, but as they were trying to put the car in the trailer, I said to the guy who was taking it, excuse me, what do you think you're doing? That's my own private transport. And he wouldn't speak to me. I asked him his name, he wouldn't answer. And I said, do you realise that you're causing a loss here? You're actually stealing my personal property because I'm not consenting to you taking that. He didn't like it. The police were sat in the car and wouldn't come out. So I went over to them and I said to them, look, this guy is stealing my vehicle. Are you officers going to do anything about it? No. And they sat in the car and I said, so do you realise by sitting there and watching this crime go ahead, you're actually aiding and abetting to the theft of a motor vehicle? And he said, he's not thieving it, he's authorised to take it. I said, not by me, he's not. And I said, don't you have a law called TWOC that you refer to as TWOC, taking without the owner's consent? He didn't want to answer that. I said, because that's what he's doing, he's taking my car without my consent. So what's the difference? Didn't want to know. So he waved goodnight and drove off, and my car went a different way. So after that, I wrote to the DVLA and sent them a bill for £20,500. £500 for being stopped for an hour. It was actually more than an hour, but I let them off. And £20,000 for my car being taken off me. I gave them 28 days to pay. The 28 days was up on the 15th of December. They never got in touch. I sent them a final reminder 7 days before, still nothing. So I'm now in the process of sending them, I'm not sure what the next part of the process is, this is what I'm hoping to find out, but I think the next step is to send them an affidavit explaining everything that happened and my understanding of it and my truth of it. Give them time to reply, and when they don't reply, then follow that up with a commercial, is it Lean or Lions? I don't know how you pronounce that. Lean. Is it a commercial lion? Oh, Lean, sorry. Right, so that will be the next process, is that right?
And if you get it notarized, that has the highest authority.
Sorry,
if you get it notarized, your affidavit, it has the highest authority in the land.
Yeah, that's something else I saw a video today, I don't know if you're familiar with, oh God, I've forgotten his name now. The guy who's in prison.
Rusty.
No, it's Rusty. I was watching a video of him today saying about that, and they wouldn't stamp his affidavit or something.
3 good men.
3 good men.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a GP.
Yeah, well.
Ex-GP.
Doesn't matter.
No.
You're a good woman, aren't you?
Yes. She's still qualified.
So I need 2 more then. So by 3 good men, what do they mean? Doctors?
As long as you don't have a conviction of anything.
It can't be any of them police that have been done for prostitution, burglary,
And the one who's just been let off murdering somebody. So that'll be my next step then. Now I don't know, you've got to remember though that when you do this, at some point they will stop you. Because now they've got those horrible little ANPR cameras in the cars that grass everybody up. So they will stop you, and when they do, if you try and explain to them that you're a free man or anything, they'll lock you up. Because they've got this thing going about now that they're trying to put the free man in prison under the Mental Health Act. This is information I've had from another lad who's in Leicester, I think, who's also done the same thing. They took his car off him, they've had it for 7 months now, and they owe him £750,000 because of his fee schedule. But on a final thing, when they stopped me for the no insurance, they took the car away, but I've not received any summons for not having insurance, or tax, or MOT. Now, ask yourselves why that is. They have 14 days in which to send you the NIP from the date that they stop you.
What's the NIP?
A notice of intended prosecution. This was on the 29th of October. It's now the 3rd of January. I think that's a bit more than 14 days. So, I'm presuming now that they're not going to take that any further.
14 weeks.
So ask yourself the reason why.
Because it's not legal.
I think the reason myself personally is because when he read my rights and I refused to consent, he couldn't go anywhere else with it. Because what you've got to remember, the legalese as well, when they say, do you understand? Do you stand under me? No, I don't stand under you. And once you tell them that, and they realise you know what it means, oh, bloody hell, another one. And off they go. Because they know they can't go any further with it.
that you've risked using your car, haven't you? Which has happened to guys all over the court. You know, lose his car. You to be prepared to get
Yeah,
through
well, fortunately, where they took it, a company called Mansfield Group, who have a contract with the police actually get £56 for every car that's collected by them. They charge you £150 to get it back. I know this because one of my next door neighbours used to work for them. And he now gives me the gate codes for the yard where the cars are. So, if anybody wants the gate codes for the Mansfield Group, I've got this month's gate codes on my phone. It's just 2 gates and 4 digits and a hash on each one. So if your car gets taken, you just go along there, walk in, get your car. So,
if they did what they did to mine.
What's that?
They had to collect it, and there was a Mercedes on top of it. On top of it. They had to get a crane to get out. And I blew up and he nearly had to fight with me. And I had to fight the police.
Was that at Mansfield?
No, it's at Leicester.
Oh, right.
Different company, but it's actually physically on top, yeah. And I nearly had to fight with the owner of the business.
Did you get your car back?
Yeah, I got the car back. He got his lad to get the crane and get it out. But I said, that's not really treating my vehicle with respect. I mean, it's been broken. No, it was damaged by the thieves who stole it. They couldn't get hold of me on my mobile because I was out back in Leicester. Couldn't get hold of me until I went home on the registered number again. And that was it. They took the car.
Well, mine's a soft top, so they couldn't stick anything on the roof of mine. Well, anyway. But mine was just left in the yard, and all the others were there, just in the yard, like a big car park.
But what happened with mine is the scenes of crime, I had to wait a week until Stocko came out, right? And then that day, the pound would charge him per day on top of the 150 quid. So by the time I got it back, I think I had to pay 230 quid or more.
They tried that one with me, because it was taken on the Saturday night. They don't charge you for the Saturday or Sunday. And the Monday was the 31st of October, and the tax on the car actually ran out that day, because it was previously taxed till the 31st of October. And I never sent the tax back because there wasn't really that much left on it. I just put the different plates on, and I put my own tax disc saying, this vehicle is private property out of the jurisdiction of the United Kingdom Corporation, anyone fixing PCNs, blah, 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 and all that on there.
You can get this off the net, can't you?
Yeah. I made up my own, just like a tax disc, and put them in there. Yeah. And I was parking in, I live over Erlington Way, and I was parking on the high street there, no problems. Guy walking up and down. I don't think half the traffic wardens can read anyway. And they would walk up and see it and just carry on. But since then, when I went to get the car back on the Monday, I had to have insurance, because otherwise they wouldn't sign this form that they give me to get the car back. So I went on the internet and got insurance with the intention of cancelling it once I got the car back.
What about the World Freeman Society? Because that weren't they doing something where you could, where they were going to do like a big pot or something?
I don't know.
It's not yet.
That hasn't happened.
I've not heard about that.
Would Robert know?
I don't know, but I'll look into it if you tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah.
But what I did in the end, I got the insurance off the internet, printed off a copy of the policy, went to the police station with the notice that they'd given me on the insurance. They wouldn't accept it because it was print off the internet. And I videoed this. I've got a pair of these spy glasses. I don't know if you've seen them. And I put them on the counter and videoed everything that was happening because the copper didn't know. And he was looking miserable as sin and wouldn't speak to him really. And I said to him, look, I've come to get my car back that was stolen by your officers on Saturday. And he said, what do you mean stolen? I said, well, they took it off me. I didn't let them, they disappeared with it. And he wasn't sure what was going on, and he went and asked somebody else. Then he came back, oh, well, you didn't have insurance. I said, I don't need it. And he said, oh, I'm not interested, mate. And he pushed the papers back. And I said, well, I want my car back. He said, no, you've got to bring the original document. Well, I won't get that for another couple of days. We'll come back when you've got it. No, because you'll be charging me £20 a day. And at the same time, the tax runs out tonight, so you'll do me for tax as soon as I drive out, and it'll go straight back in the pound. I said, it's got to come out today, or not at all. And so I went back home, phoned up the insurance company, they sent me a secure document which I printed off, and I went back again, same copper. And it was just nearing the time where they changed shifts. So he wasn't happy because he wanted to get away. So he actually signed it this time and just sort of pushed it back. And I said, right, where do I get the car from? It's at Mansfield Group. Great, where's that? And they were reluctant for some reason to tell me where it was. But I found out in the end and went down there, and the rest is history. I got the car back out. But at the moment, it's got the original car plates back on it, and it is fully road legal. But the simple reason for that is, at the moment, I'm going through all this with the DVLA. So once that's gone through, and I've hopefully got the 20.5 grand off them, then the original plates will go back onto Liberty and all the rest of it.
Fantastic.
And then, if they want to take it on any further, I've got the money in my pocket then to fight them in the courts through it.
I was told that you have to fill the export section out on the V5. Is that right or not?
Different system.
Different system,
I think.
I've taken cars, I used to live and work in Crete, and I've driven cars over to Crete and dumped them there. And I've had letters, when this SORN business came out, statutory off-road notification, I was in Crete, and I got a letter off them saying that you have to pay a fine because your car was off-road and you haven't notified us. And I just wrote back to them and said the car was scrapped in Greece. I never heard any more.
So anybody could do that.
So
let's give them a round of applause.
First, if you've got any questions, I've got a book, please write them down because I will not be answering much. I've been ill for a few weeks, so I do apologise with the throat. Anybody want to talk about council tax briefly before I start with N-Power?
Avoidance or reduction?
Avoidance I'm against.
Oh, excellent.
Because I want to pay for something fair and reasonable, but they don't follow the process. The process should be, you get like the bills, the statements, the notices, the final notices, instalment notices, and you get the complaint, then the summons. You go to court, they hire the room, and you get scammed. If you've got any questions on it, please write your email. I'll email you all the Acts of Parliament, information of it, not a problem. On to N-Power. Again, it is to the point, because my throat and feel like crap. But try and get out there. Right, N-Power, I've got a judicial review hearing now, this month hopefully. Now the judge in the case is ruled 3 times against me in 3 different cases from the Magistrates Court. The Birmingham Magistrates Court has admitted all the errors. We've got 6 counts of contempt of court from them. We've got 6 court clerks on fraud and misconduct, plus we've got N-Power on fraud on about 8 occasions. February of this year, as a consumer of everybody who's paying for bills, your prices are going to be going up and your companies are not going to be telling you. So that's Scottish Power, Eon, N-Power, British Gas, everybody. And then what they'll do after the summer, they'll reduce the rates down, bring out home insulation packages for the elderly, and renewable energy. Just a scam, allegedly. Well, it is proven.
Did you say 30% earlier?
30%.
That's pretty high.
That's by summer this year. Tariffs was abolished in the Electricity Act 1989. As it stands, there's 400 tariffs across the board, but yet they're supposed to be abolished. So ask yourself, are they breaking the law themselves by ripping the consumer off? Because the tariffs should not be there. Birmingham Magistrates Court wrote just before Christmas to say the remedy, which is the appeal process for the case, lies with the Birmingham Magistrates Court. And people who aren't aware of this, back a couple of months ago, I was actually banned from Birmingham Magistrates Court for being a nuisance because I kept asking the questions of like the appeals. Because you go in there, you just get scammed. It's just a con. You don't get a fair hearing. You've got about 5 people against you at the moment you step foot in the courtroom. It's a real negative place to be in the courts, but it can be fun. But if anybody wants to come to the hearing, it will be fun, guaranteed. You'll hear the scam for what it is.
Where is it?
I've got no doubt yet. But it's going to be big.
So I got thrown out of Birmingham Magistrates Court the other week.
But what's interesting, because I go in there quite often just to hand in paperwork to the desk, and what I did now, because you get to the stage, they don't want to listen to you, so I write a receipt, and I'll do it. I'll send you templates and everything. I've got what works.
I just sat in the back of the court, and when the bloke said all right, I just stayed sat down.
Oh, I do.
And he had me thrown out.
I mean, I'm a firm believer on a fair hearing, constitutional law, and you can read laws all day, but they're just pointless.
Well, as they were throwing me out, I asked the magistrates if they got their oaths, and they disappeared in the back room like a bat of a drain pipe. But the clerk followed them as well.
Yeah.
Wonder why. Yes.
Allegedly scam.
Yeah.
I say allegedly. Good word.
But the 4 lads in there were for motoring offences, and they were like frightened.
Well, in the Birmingham Magistrates Court, I know from the county courts, they have a library. The county court's the 2nd floor where the library is based, but it's a closed room now. But they have the judge's oaths of office in the book.
Because when I'm not doing anything, I like to go up there and just cause trouble. Make the money,
See, because I was in a case recently from a lad from the White Rabbit Trust for a mortgage. Quite a good case, and the way the solicitor for the other side presented the case to the court was quite interesting. Because he brought a bundle of his paperwork with him and then presented it to the chap who he was with on the day, because he said he never received it. Which I thought that was quite a good manoeuvre, but cunning. But you could do the same back. But arguing gets you nowhere. Even with the judges. What I've learned I've been battling them for 12 years, not many people know that, for all different sorts of stuff.
Well, it's not arguing, it's just questioning.
Well, but there's a certain point. But with the judges and the other people in the courtroom, you tell them the fact, then you state the law to them, then you tell them the remedy. There's only 3 things you need to prove: the fact, the law, the remedy. You'll win. Simple. That's all I've learned, and it's just stick to them 3 things, and you'll win. So going back onto the Empower, last week, 6 o'clock on the night, I had a visit, which I wasn't expecting, from a company called Meter Plus, a private company from Empower, come to read our meters. But back in August, we had prepayment meters fitted. And the chap knocked the door, said, "I come to read your meters." And I says, "Okay, have you got a CRB check?" He said, "No." I said, "Okay, have you got a court order?" He said, "No." I said, "Well, you're not allowed in there." He said, "Well, I said, "Well, I have a family, and you have a family. Without them 2 documents, you're not coming in." So he's like, "But I'm from Empower." And I said, "I'm not fussed if I'm just, please go away, and by the way, you owe me." He said, "Well, how do we owe you?" I said, "Well, didn't you read my notice on the gate?" He said, "I didn't see it." I said, "That's not my problem." He said, "Because it's there and you can see it." Now, they catch you unaware, but the camera never lies. So if you're expecting anybody, or anybody comes down your path, film them. because it's vital. It's really important you film them, because they lie and they will deceive you to try and come into your property and to do whatever. I mean, last time I opened the door to a bathe, I was assaulted, so so it's a catch-22.
How did you assault you, Bill?
Pardon?
How did you assault you? What did you do?
Birmingham Magistrates Court committed fraud through an assault from 2 warrant officers for a fine which was under appeal, which was in the Court of Appeal in London. But yet, the MP, Richard Burden, which he knew about, and it was all, when it was going under the appeal, the court staff never communicated with one another. And then I had a phone call from my partner to say there was 2 warrant officers at my house. But they come back on a night time, and the police, West Midlands Police, I phoned them for their protection, but the warrant officers switched the story against me. So when they come out on a night time, it was either pay the money or do 2 weeks in the prison. But I got the money together, offered them the money, but the warrant officer, he assaulted me in front of my partner, which left me with well, quite a bad shoulder, which put me out of my job, which I'm currently dealing with the Treasury, Ministry of Justice headquarters. Having quite a good, interesting conversation. A real positive, no negative talking with them, just positive energy, positive speaking with one another, civil conversations. This morning, as well, on that particular topic, I was going to write a letter to Ministry of Justice and the GP over it, and the little one, she was only like 1, bless her. Cheers. And she was taking my attention away from writing a letter, and I was saying why, because you can't buy love. And the family unit is more important than writing letters, studying law, and trying to battle. Because the information out there, a lot of it is really bad. And that's what I've learned a lot of, is just to try and stay clear of it, learn from it, move on, and concentrate on positive, building relationships with the family, and building a bond. Because you get lost in translation. But I think that's good. That's how I'm going to leave it in my throat. But if you've got any questions, please write them down. That's it for next time. I promise you, I'll do more next time. But with my throat, I can't.
No, come on. He's a sick man.